Welcome everyone to our VIP meet and greet. My name is Betty Diaz, and I'm delighted to introduce today's special guests. We have Ray Hopkins, President of U.S. Networks Distribution at Paramount, and Mickey Carter, Executive Vice President of U.S. Networks Distribution at Paramount, and he's also an Army veteran. So thank you both for being here. We're honored to have you. Panel, would you please share what you do at Paramount and what your day-to-day looks like?
Great to see everyone. Welcome. My name is Ray Hopkins. I head up U.S. Networks Distribution for Paramount. And what that basically means is that we have 27 television stations Paramount owns. Most of them are CBS affiliated television stations. We're in charge of distribution for those television stations, and I'll explain exactly what that means in a second, as well as another 27 basic cable networks we're in charge of distribution for. In addition to a premium service, we handle the distribution within our department for Showtime. And we also handle distribution of Paramount Plus and some of our related digital services to our distributor community. So this distributor community being the traditional, cable spectrum here in New York or Los Angeles, Comcast, DirecTV, Fios, YouTube TV, Hulu Live. Those are our clients. We're in charge of the distribution of our 27 television stations, 27 cable networks onto these platforms. I've been in this business for 30 plus years at this point. It's been a fascinating business because it continues to evolve. The media industry never sits still, and I've been fortunate to kind of evolve, with it.
Ray did a great job, obviously, describing what we do and who we are. I had a chance to join CBS. I joined up Ray's team back in 2013 when it was CBS. Ray talked about having a long tenure in this business. I actually come at it a little bit differently. I actually come at television after having had a prior career in music and in sports. But what I found, and certainly what we've all learned over the years, certainly in the last 10 years, is that there's a convergence of all that media, right? It used to be that there was a separate music business, there was a separate video television business, there was a separate radio business, and now it's all just media, right? And there are all these various platforms. So I was JAG Corps during my active duty service, Army. I was ROTC coming out of college. So I was fortunate enough to have the Army pay for all of my college education. When I got to that point, senior year, and we had what we called then our dream sheet. And they, ask you what branch do you want to go into? What do you want as your first duty station? There were a lot of us were, thinking we put down a lot of really fabulous places, Hawaii and, overseas in Italy and all that stuff. We were discouraged from all that. One of the options was to put on the sheet that I wanted the option to go to graduate school. The Army looked at a law school as one of the job functions that they wanted. And so I finished law school straight from undergrad, straight into law school. And then I went active duty. But I always knew throughout that time period, and I developed during law school, that I wanted to ultimately work in media. And now, what Ray described as the world that we're in and the business that we manage, it's fascinating.
What advice would you give someone who's pursuing a career in media or just distribution?
Get into the business. First and foremost, I wouldn't really kind of sweat that next job as much as I would try to, figure an area where you think that you're going to enjoy and excel in. Once you do that and you let your performance, speak for itself, I think that you're going to find that doors and opportunities will present themselves that you would never imagine. So I would probably not sweat the first job as much as I would try to find an area that where in a core competency where you think that you would enjoy and excel in. Much in the way the business went from, just at one point just being broadcast television to bringing in cable. The cable companies became really internet companies that provided video, and now streaming's taking off. I certainly have been the beneficiary, and I know that Mickey has as well, as getting involved with an industry that just has had, has had a lot of legs, continues to evolve. And as executives, we kind of evolve with it. But in doing so, it has presented opportunities that 30 years ago, I could never imagine. I mean, some of the companies that I've worked for in my career, when I started my career, were not even companies. So, if you wind up getting involved in an industry that has growth.
One of the things that I always tell people about my military experience was it helped me understand that I'm capable of doing things that I didn't necessarily think that I could do. I was challenged in ways that stretched me beyond even what I thought that I could do. That's knowledge and that's confidence that I think carries on into every aspect of your life. And so I'm going out on a limb. I obviously do not know you all, but I'm guessing that there's some element of that has been part of your military background and part of your military experience. And so figure out what you're passionate about. And I think that, everybody has to make choices based upon what their personal circumstances are, their family circumstances, their financial circumstances. And every choice that we make, every opportunity that we're faced with, we each have a different calculus based upon who we are. But I think that, this group, treat thinking about your career like you probably have treated your military career, or certainly some of the things that you learned. And don't be shy about looking at opportunities and to not necessarily limit yourselves in terms of what you think that you can do, what you can accomplish. The media happens to be one of those spaces where it's popular, right? A lot of people want to break into media. Don't be shy about going after opportunities. Don't be shy about making clear to the people who are presenting opportunities about your military background, and talk about what that helped you do, what you've learned throughout that process. I can tell you, up until Ray hired me, every job that I was hired for in my career until Ray hired me in 2013 was a job that I had not done before. But it's just a matter of just really kind of the message there is just look for opportunities, whether they're jobs, whether they're networking opportunities to get to know people who can give you opportunities. Think about what your goal is and then try to figure out how to map out some sort of plan for how you get there. And then it's just being ready for those opportunities when they're presented.
And I was just wondering, like you're saying, the legacy cable systems are, still profitable in some way. So how you kind of balance, putting energy in, like, all right, we need to stay on top of things and evolve and be flexible versus like, well, this is actually working and how much do we want to, invest in this, and kind of what that balance is.
We need as a company to grow, expand, our direct to consumer base. It's a difficult pivot, and it's one that we are in the middle of, because that pivot is one that we are writing big content checks, and we've been public about this. We're not going to be profitable under our internal analysis on streaming for a couple of years. You're seeing that with Disney, and you're seeing that with the new Warner Brothers Discovery. Streaming is not, at this point when you start it up, is not a profitable business, just because there's so much spend. And there's this, this dirty word called churn, where people, go, they subscribe, they consume what they came for, and then they, with the flick of a finger, they churn, they disconnect until they and maybe go somewhere else or come back ultimately if there's something else. So it's a very expensive game to be in. It's one that everyone has to play. It's not as profitable as the business that we are pivoting from. So we're evolving from that model to a model where people are making choices on their phone on, hey, do I want it? Does Paramount Plus appeal to me? And if it does, I'll subscribe. And now, trick there is, now that you subscribe, how do we hold on to you? And the real answer is we need to continue to produce content that's going to create a stickiness, beyond that initial, trial period of, 30, 60, 90, 120 days. That gets into an expensive game. You got to constantly feed the monster. We have a great executive team that does content and is doing a wonderful job at that, but it nonetheless is an expensive game. And one that we are, pivoting to and trying to be, real leaders in the space, and have had a lot of success.
So when you talk about, making that shift, Chris, when you talk about kind of how do you strike that balance, there's some hard choices that have to be made.
It was not that long ago that we were all fighting over just this big pot of money and who was going to grab more. But at the end of the day, whether you were the distributor or you were the television station owner or you were the network, no matter where the negotiation ended, everyone was going to be fine, because it was this large pot of money that we were, kind of all enjoying and trying to just arguing over how to split up the riches. I mean, that's really what it came down to. Now there's a real tension, and that goes a tremendous way in negotiations.
From a kind of a micro perspective in terms of the individual challenges, I think I need to point out that the leadership matters now of our staff, I think, more than it has historically. I think that the last couple of years during COVID have been, something that we've never seen before, personally, professionally. I think when you add to it just a lot of the social unrest generally in our country, and you've seen corporations taking views of what's happening in the larger world in a way that we've never seen before. And I think that there's been an increased focus upon the employee. For CBS being, and now Paramount, I didn't know it when I joined, but I had no idea about the history that I'm sure you all have learned, with a focus upon U.S. military veterans. And it's, certainly testament to part of that focus and part of that emphasis, and seeing kind of the value in our military veterans that draws people like Ray and lots of other people to the events that Betty organizes, who don't necessarily have military backgrounds, but want to support and see the value and understand that there's a unique background that you have, that you bring when you come into places like this. That's an important part of the diverse thinking that every organization needs in its staff population.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.